Yo, 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 welcome to Crate 808, and today we're diving back into our series, looking at the greatest 3-album runs in hip-hop, and today's one is big, it's massive, because we are tackling 3 records from a very special crew with a very special guest on board. Yes, today we dive into the Hieroglyphics catalogue with none other than Heiro producer and manager Domino in the house. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, man. Blessed to have you on. We've done a lot of Hiero this year on the show, so to have yourself on, we had Dell on a while back. Man, just an absolute honor, man. So, yeah.
Oh, no, the pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me.
It's all good, man. So the run, I know people think we're cheating here because we usually go by artists, but the Hiero crew, when you suggested this on the email, which was 93 Till Infinity, No Need for Alarm, and Fear Itself, I'm not going to say no to that. Like, Domino wants to talk about these 3 records. I'm in. But before we jump in, I've got to ask you what I ask everyone who comes on the show, Domino. What is the least hip-hop thing you've done in the last 24 hours?
The least hip-hop thing I've done in the last 24 hours? That's a good question. The least hip-hop, see, nowadays, since there's not a whole lot going on, as far as hitting the road and stuff or going to shows, I feel like I'm like a parent full time. So I'd have to say it probably has something to do with, I have 9-year-old twins. So it probably had to do with some sort of discipline or let's see, probably the least hip hop thing that I had to do in the last 24 hours was discuss with my son why he didn't eat his lunch that I made for him yesterday. And so I'd say that's probably the least hip hop thing that I've done in the last 24 hours.
Yo, 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 quick reminder, if you're enjoying the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button so you'll be kept up to date with all that we're doing. And also, man, get involved in the YouTube comments. Man, we love hearing from you fellow hip-hop heads. We love nerding out. So bring those takes and just bring that flavour, man, and we might even shout you out on the show. So yes, appreciate all the support. Now, back to the episode. Are you the kind of dad then that... I don't know if I'm just being petty myself. I've got a little kid. He's only 4 though. When I make that lunch and I've took time to really go in, it's got a lot of love in there and he doesn't eat it, I feel like a personal affront. I feel like he's insulted me a little bit. Are you the kind of dad that just kind of let it chill, or are you more like...
Yeah, no, I mean, I could see what you're saying because you know what? I got to get up early and I usually start making it before they're up. And so, yeah, it definitely is kind of like a little bit of a sensitive spot when your kids don't eat it or
Yeah.
I remember I got a funny story. My stepdaughter, she's older now, she's grown, but she I guess I used to make her lunch for a long time before she went to school, and then somehow years later, I don't know if she showed it to us or her mom came across some little diary thing.
Yeah.
And she wrote in it how much she hated my turkey sandwiches.
Oh, no.
But she was afraid to say. And so, you know what I mean? I was like, dang,
Damn.
All those months and months of waking up early to make turkey sandwiches and all, lo and behold, she hated them and would toss them.
Oh, so, I feel for you, dad to dad. I feel for you right there. Because turkey sandwiches as well, like Domino's turkey sandwiches, just sound like there should be a chain. I'd eat there if you were doing turkey sandwich. But bless her, man. Oh, bless. And you know what? She didn't even tell you. That's the cutest thing. That's she didn't even tell you.
She felt like she didn't want to hurt my feelings.
That's big.
And so so I couldn't be too mad, but I was a bit like, boy, you could have saved me a lot of time and a lot of money if you would have just told me,
Lesson learned, my friend.
Yes.
Oh man, that's amazing. Well, Domino, man, I obviously we're going to go chronologically with these records, right? 93. So 93 Till Infinity, we kick it off with that. But These three records, obviously, a lot of our fan base are massive into Hiero. And if they're not, they have heard us talk about No Need for Alarm has had like 4 different episodes this year alone. So all their listeners they're used to these talks. But for you, being like so far departed in time from these records, how are you with these records now? Do you listen to them still? How do you feel about them? Like, do you get asked about them still a lot? Or is it kind of something that you kind of just live with? I don't know. How is it for you now?
I wouldn't say that I listen to them a lot. But once they got to like 20 and 25 years old, there was certainly kind of a resurgence on the records. And so I did it gets mentioned in interviews and I talk a lot about them. When we do shows, obviously we do a lot of the songs, but as far as listening to them start and finish, it's been quite a while since I've done that. But that's just kind of how it goes, like with your own work, you might revisit it, but it's not something that you go, hey, I want to throw on. And generally a lot of times when songs come on, like randomly on my phone, if I'm listening to music, sometimes I'll even fast forward them, but just depends.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, jumping into Souls of Mischief and the Bay Area and San Francisco, and obviously you're from San Francisco, but Oakland, and it's so far away from like my world when I grew into hip hop. So it was all seen through the prism of Souls and obviously Dell and Casual, as we talk about. But for someone who may not know, could you maybe define the Oakland and Bay Area kind of like scene, especially when you guys were growing up? Like, what was the music there? What was the spirit like there? And how is it now for you? Like, could you break that down for me?
Well, I think at the time that these records, or at least leading up to these records, were made, I think most of the Bay Area music sound, at least from a hip hop standpoint, was more kind of like known for its mob, gangster kind of pimp rap, and so that was the majority of stuff that had came to light, at least, which was like Too Short and Rappin' Forte, and there were some exceptions like Digital Underground, but for the most part, if you have to talk about the general Bay Area sound, I think that most people would say that it was like mob music or gangster rap. I think that was the more prevalent stuff that people knew the Bay for, and so that goes for San Francisco as well. I just think the Bay Area in general, that was kind of the main things that people were doing, and so we were kind of a little bit of a different flavor when we came about.
Yo, us here at the Crate 808 podcast have kicked off our Patreon. So if you don't know what Patreon is, it's a platform where you can go and for a small donation, you can help support us make more hip hop content for you. Go on to patreon.com/Crate808 and you can check out all the little payment options you've got there. You can check out the 2 new episodes you'll be getting every month, live chats with us guys, just to rap nerd out with you guys. We're going to go into some wide-ranging episodes, delving into the work of the Wu-Tang Clan, MF Doom and Jay Dilla. So get it locked if you want that new granular look at hip hop. So go to our payment tiers on Patreon, big up yourselves. If you choose to support us, thank you so much. I will give you a personalised shout out on the show, and we shall catch you in one of these live rooms and let's get this community going. So spread the word. Much love for your time and peace out. Boom. What do you think it was, that flavour? Like, what made you stand out from that crowd? Like, could you pinpoint it now, like looking back at it?
I think it was just that we were different. You know what I mean? I think that any time that you can be different and do something well, but be different, I think people will be attracted to it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that was probably the main thing, is that, people were like, oh, and a lot of people didn't know we were from the Bay Area either, because our sound wasn't, like I said, part of the quote unquote Bay Area sound. And so we offered a different take on it. Some people thought it was, I think people thought, and I think it's true. It's a true assessment that it had a little bit more of an East Coast style leaning, because I think that was the stuff that most of the guys in Heiro were listening to and influenced by. They were listening to Short and they were listening to other things from the Bay. But I think as far as stylistic influences, I think that a lot of the stuff that was coming out of the East Coast and LA, of course, was a little bit more of the influence of where we were taking our music.
It's interesting, man. Do you remember when you first heard of the crew, Hiero? I know you got introduced to Dell through Dante Ross and stuff like that, but do you remember like even hearing about the crew and what they were about and what they were into?
No, I never heard of them before. Dante told me about them, and it was really like I just signed this cat who's Ice Cube's cousin, Dell, and he has a whole crew of guys, and you should hook up with them. And so, because I was in the Bay, and even though I was across the bridge in San Francisco, they were close by at least enough, and he felt like I could, my beats would be a good match for them. And so, that was it. I had never heard of them. I didn't know Ice Cube had a cousin, Dell. I didn't know any of that. And so, it wasn't until I met them and then kind of got explained what, there's a crew, Hieroglyphic, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't until I kind of linked up with them till I learned about them.
Yeah. And what was special about that? Like going into that scene, did you ever think when you first met them, damn, we're going to have a legacy together?
I probably didn't think about that first. I just was amazed at how talented they were. And also, they also had a passion for hip hop that I felt like I had. And so, I felt like, I had an instant kinship with them because of that. It was like they were super enthusiastic and super talented. And that's how I felt about hip hop and doing music. And then, I felt like my beats, I could add to them with what I was doing, because at the time, they were just MCs and a couple of them produced, but I was the only one who was just a producer who kind of got linked up with them. And so, but I that was the main thing I remember was like, wow, these guys are really good. And they're also really passionate and really like, they were super young too. Like I was a little older, or I am a little older. At that time, they were like 17, 18 years old. And I was like 22, maybe 21, maybe. And so like, like they still had that, like they were in high school. And so they were, I think Dell wasn't in high school anymore, but I think the rest of them were. And so, they still had that, that youthful teenager exuberance about everything. And it was like, wow, this is cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Looking back on it now, that 16 to 18-year-old energy, if you just bottle that up and just kind of take a little bit every day, your life would be like, I just think of the extremes you go to, right? And I think it was Opio. I think I was reading something for this interview where Opio was saying something about the same thing. Like we ate, breathed, drank, slept hip hop. Like that's what and just reading them words, I was like, man, that energy is still, but it comes through in the music, man. Like, I don't know how you see how souls separate, and not souls, but Heiro generally separate themselves from like, the hip hop universe. But one thing that was definitely there was in the videos, in the music, in the beat selection, the energy, man. And you, as a kid, you're just like, how am I not going to move to this? And it was infectious, man.
Well, it's also the energy and also, the age they were, but also the fact that it was 8 guys who had equal energy. And so we were all kind of like feeding off each other, I'm a little bit more laid back, but you know what I mean? And I was a little older, but that definitely, affected me in a positive way.
That's wicked, man. So the album, 93 Till Infinity, do you remember what your most memorable moments of that kind of just making it, kind of seeing it come to fruition must have been amazing, like going from demos to bang, like now we're making this,
Well, one thing I want to point out, and this is the reason why I mentioned these 3 records, is that these 3 records were all made at the same time. Meaning that we were all in the studio together at the same time. And so that's why I felt like it would be a good kind of run to discuss, because, they came out at different times, but they were literally all recorded at the same time. And so we'll get into this backstory before we talk about the specifics of the record, but basically the records, Del was starting his second No Need for Alarm. And so while he's starting it in the studio, he has these lockouts for, week-long lockouts. And so he's started recording No Need for Alarm, well, it was untitled at the time. And then the Souls and Casual are just finishing up their deals with Jive Records, right? And so there was a holdup with their deals being finished because Tajay at the time was under 18, and so they had to get court approval on their contract. And Casual was also under 18, so he had to get a court approval for his solo contract. And so meanwhile, Del's in the studio recording. So Del does about maybe 8 to 10 songs, and then he sends a tape down to Ice Cube and to check out how it's going. And Ice Cube doesn't like what he's come up with, right? And so instantly there's a freeze on the studio time to be able to figure out what he's going to do, Yeah. And so there's all this studio time, and then I come up, I say, hey, what'd be good? Why don't we, since the studio time's frozen and it's already paid for the most part, why don't we start doing our records, our Casual, Souls and Casual? Why don't we start doing the records, with this time that's just sitting there not being used, and while we're waiting for the, these contracts to be. And so then we start doing the songs that we had initially demoed. And there was a bunch of songs that the Souls had demoed and Casual had demoed that they got signed for or just were on the demos. And so let's see, for Souls, Cab Fare was obviously one.
For sure.
One of the songs. There was a song called, I think, I'm trying to remember what we demoed. Oh, I demoed a song called Live and Let Live. We did that on a demo. I think, I want to say there was a song called Souls of Mischief that was a different version that we had demoed that we went in to record.
Right.
There was a song called Batting Practice.
The original
that wasn't the original, right? It was the original that didn't end up getting used because of the sample clearance. But so there was a bunch of songs that we had demoed already, and so we went in there. Same with Casual, Follow the Funk, Losing the End. I had done a lot of Casual's demos, and so we started recording the songs that we had already. And so this is at the same time, and so this is like literally, one day we'd be in there for Souls, or maybe even on the same day we'd be doing a couple of Soul songs, or then we do some Casual songs a little later. And so this was happening as Del is getting his stuff sorted, and then eventually Del starts coming back in too. And the only song that made it through from the initial 10 songs that were recorded, I think, or 8 to 10 songs, was In and Out, which is in one ear, right? That's the only one from the demo that made it onto the record.
He deleted the rest. He's deleted them.
Well, yeah, right. What happened was when he went in, he got there before me, so we started again. He goes, go over all the other reels. Which, when I got there, I was pulled my what the hell? Because to me they were great songs. Yeah. And some of them survived via the fact that we had took rough versions of them home when they were first being recorded. And so if you listen to the Heiro Oldies, there's Heiro Oldies series that we put out. There's a song called Neighborhood. That was one of the songs that was on that initial demo. There's a song called What Do You Say? Yeah. That was one of those songs. And there may be one or two others that kind of survived. Yeah. But I think and so ultimately, he had went over those songs, at least on the reels, and so they only existed on cassette versions after that, except for that one song. And I guess I don't know why that one saved. Maybe Cube liked that one. Maybe that was the one he did like. I don't remember. But, so that was kind of the the process leading up to this. And so just so you know, that they came out at different times, but they were certainly all recorded at pretty much the same time.
Right. I got you. That's amazing, man. Because like you hear so many things about like artists just kind of not even being given that second chance. If they don't like what you're doing, sometimes that's it. But the fact that you guys capitalized and not just made one track or one album, you guys made these three, is just phenomenal, man. And talking of phenomenal, like, I know we could quite easily, it's been talked about to death. Like, you must get this question about 93 Till Infinity, the actual track, like all the time. But we have a category which it just kind of easily fits for this, which is like 5 mic moments. So a moment which is almost near perfection for this artist or this, you know, crew. So for Hiero, everyone calls it like, you know, the song that everyone goes to and everyone knows. What is it for you though, personally, that makes that song so special?
I think it's changed over time, right?
Interesting.
But I think it's the beat. You know, I think that the beat that A+ made is just so unique. It doesn't sound like anything else. Like, that's really, you know, the thing that's so great, and why I think that 93 Till Infinity has stood the test of time as far as a song. And actually, if you ask me, it's grown. I think it's way more popular than it was even when it first came out. It's like deemed, you know, it's like a classic. People consider it a classic. But it always goes back to the beat, you know, in the Billy Cobham sample. Like, I just think that it's just the melodic aspect of it, the feel, the vibe of it, is just what's so brilliant about it. And I think that, you know, I think the hook is also another thing that's very catchy and very, you know, the chorus and very memorable. You know what I mean? And I think that had a lot to do with the success of it. But I think the beat is it, man. I think that's what makes the song. And you know, and on a connection to that, I think the video had a lot to do with why people really like the song, because I think the video is a perfect visual capsulation of the song. Michael Lucero, rest in peace, who directed it. It was his idea to take us into all of these kind of like beautiful scenic places. Yeah. And I think it goes with the song so perfectly. And it gives you the vibe of what exactly they're talking about in the song. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't point that out, that had a lot to do with, to me, the success of the song, is that we had a visual component that matched it so well.
Yeah. And that dimension, the visual as well as the audio, the overall feel and soul of that song is really odd, because you can talk about it technically, like the fusion of like jazz and making jazz like hard, like it's fucking hard, like your music can do that, but also like the fact that this was more, it's almost like it's so nostalgic. It's just that moment in time captured by this youthful energy that will never diminish, because, you know, that track's always going to sound like that, and it's only how you perceive it. And I just feel like the special thing for me of the album is just, of that track, is just that it's just like a time capsule. You can put it on and bang, you're there.
Well, again, going back to the music, I think that the melody, I think it was the melody of the Fender Rhodes, which I want to say it was George Duke playing it, but you know, like there's a certain nostalgia feeling that gives you, and I will say anyone who is a fan of 93 Till Infinity to go listen to the original. Billy Cobham, Heather is the name of the song, and it's a lot slower, but it's one of the most amazing songs, and it's very passionate. It's a very moving song, and I think that A+ was able to take the pieces of it that give you that kind of feeling of a time and place and reminiscing. And I think that's a big reason why people today still have such a feeling for it.
Beautiful, man. And do you remember when A Plus played at you? Do you remember that time when he first played at you?
Yeah. I remember that time when it was near the end of because we did all the songs that were demoed first, right? And so he it was one of the not the last, I don't think it was the last song, but it was one of the songs like, all right, what else do we got, kind of thing. And then I remember playing, and I specifically saying that he had played it for Pep Love, and Pep Love was going to use it,
Yeah.
And then the Souls have this thing where they get first dibs and whatever, and I don't think Pep was like had any ownership. When I've talked to Pep about it, like, well, I didn't think about, oh, this is my beat. He barely remembered, And so, it was just like, I remember him playing it and everyone was like, whoa, what's, what I mean? Like, it definitely got a response where people were like, oh, we need to use this,
Yeah.
And so, I remember that day in the studio for sure.
That's beautiful, man. That's brilliant. Because I think another thing, and I know a lot of people do talk about the lyrics, like it's weird when you talk about like lyric heavy hip hop nowadays. All the Hiero crew are right in that. You should mention all of them, because I do feel like at that time there were certain different things to what I was hearing, New York rap, but mainly G-Funk and Gangster and Chronic and Post-Chronic here was huge. And yes, they're saying it one way, but hearing these lads come out, say it their way, bending these words how they want to bend them, but also the tracks about chilling, like I get that. I'm not there having to dodge bullets in my life. I'm privileged, right? But I am there and I like chilling. And this track is that. And it was like the universal aspect to it was great. Just even as a kid, I remember just thinking, man, I can bump this with my mates, my white mates who don't care about hip hop, and it's not violent. And although you guys address violence on the whole album, that track, it was like, no, this is a kid in the UK little village can get it. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if you guys knew that's what you were doing, but I loved being part of that conversation. Do you know what I mean? Hearing it. So absolutely brilliant, man.
Thanks.
It's all good, man. I was going to say, talking on the lyrics though, when you hear, and I know you weren't spitting, but you there were hearing them do this. When you hear someone like Andre 3000, I don't know if you heard this, but he was in an interview and he was talking about Heiro, and Andre 3000 was like, oh, me and Eminem would be on the phone and we'd be dissecting hieroglyphics, like the way they rhymed. How does that make you feel? Part of that crew, to hear two goats like that talking like that.
I think one of the things, it makes me, well, to answer your question directly, it makes me feel great. But I think the main thing about it, and I think that, we've gotten to a certain, we have a great following that is, and I think we've had a certain degree of critical success, right? And commercial success. But I think the real story, when the real story of Hieroglyphic is told, I think you have to talk about the influence we had on other artists, our peers. And it's great when you hear these people who basically were very influenced by us and then went and took that and went to the stratosphere with it, like Outkast, like Eminem, like the Fugees, Lauryn Hill and them. I mean, like Kanye West. There's a lot of people that came out of that time who followed us, who were certainly influenced by us, by them, lyrically. And I think that says a lot about, maybe we didn't get to the level of success at those groups, but it makes me feel good knowing that we're in the DNA. Part of their DNA is our DNA. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that I think a lot of people, so whenever anything like that happens, when these artists are coming out and saying this, it makes me feel good, because I think people should know that aspect about it. Not just, okay, yeah, they had that one or a couple good, huge songs and they're dope, but I think the real story of your impact is told in who follows you and who is influenced by you later on. Yeah. And I think that's probably the main thing, probably the greatest thing you could say about us, in my opinion, is how we impacted groups that took it and went to larger heights than us.
Yeah. If you're looking at a family tree, like the hip hop family tree, you're part of the trunk now. Like back then you could have said, oh, it's a branch coming off here and whatever. You're now there where you're actually, I remember hearing, I don't know if you follow much electronic music, but there's a guy called Fortet who's incredible. He was even saying souls. Yeah. That guy doesn't make hip hop. He makes other kind of, yet still that DNA follows through into other genres, man. But saying that, I was like looking at how vital lyrics were generally as you know, especially when we were kids in the 90s, lyrics were very, very important. And this song that's essentially about chilling and universal, the fact that that's where its appeal could be. The rest of the record, when I hear you on What a Way to Go Out, Anything Can Happen, there's storytelling there that's a lot more tragic, bro. Like, it's like tragic stories. Like, you know, did you guys ever sit down and even address, you know, there's certain things we should talk about. Are we just going to rap about rapping, or do we want to do concepts, and do we want to do stuff about our lives? Was that even a conscious thing for you guys?
I mean, me as a producer, it's hard for me to say, because most of the times it was really a discussion, at least for the Souls, a discussion between them four. But I do know that, you know, that I do know that sometimes they were like, let's get a topic. You know, they wanted to have some songs. They were conscious of the fact that they needed to be a little bit more well-rounded in what they talked about. And so you had they specifically had songs that were topical, and then you had the songs that were just more about flexing your lyrical skills. You know what I mean? And so that was certainly a conscious effort by them to say, hey, all right, let's talk about something. You know, and this is all based on the fact that they were all students of hip hop. And so they listened to everybody, and they, you know, probably took a little bit from Slick Rick, you know, as far as storytelling. They probably took something from Ice Cube as far as storytelling, and from each other, you know, too, like Dell, like, you know, from his first album, Wacky World of Rapid Transit, and Money for Sex, and songs that were about something specific. And so they were young, but they were they were definitely knew what they were doing, as far as, you know, having a little bit of diversity in what their songs were about. And so, and then when you go from there, then you're basically talking about, you know, things from around you, you know, or things that you witnessed or stuff. Like, you know, the song about, Anything Can Happen is obviously fiction. Tajay's mom never got shot, but, you know, it was just like, hey, it's like writing a fiction story. And Tajay just basically wrote a song about that he felt would be a cool thing, you know. You know, they all wrote it, not just him, but you know what I mean? Like, that, you know, it was basically, you know, that was the theme, and they went from there. And it's a fictional story, but it's just another kind of way to round out the record. And I think they're all pretty much smart and progressive kids, and so they, you know, they felt like they needed to have some sort of message in their music too. You know, all of like live and let live. You know, live and let live.
All these albums have that, though, bro. Sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, all these albums have a message or some sort of, like, it's not just rapping for rapping, man. Every one of these albums has conscious stuff on there. And it's 93, 94. So it's a little bit earlier than the raucous days when, you know, conscious rap and Common were massive. This was still like one of them times when I'm hearing like, that was the one, Anything Can Happen. But also, you know, What a Way to Go Out. That beat, bro, the flutes on there are just unreal. Like, just generally, the A+ again, killing it. No, it was you. That was yours, man. What a Way to Go Out was yours, wasn't it?
No, I think, Doom, doom.
Yeah.
What a Way to Go Out. That's
bro.
The one with the flutes is Anything Can Happen.
That's it. Yes. That's it.
That was always one of my favorite songs on the record.
Bro, let's go in on that then, because I know you've got Let 'Em Know, right? Let 'Em Know for me is one of my favorite tracks. The fact that you're opening this album, when did you know you'd be opening this album? Like, did they tell you? Was that a big thing?
No, we all kind of were talking together about how we should sequence it. And I think the main reason why Let 'Em Know was the first song was because it had a hardness to it, and it was super lyrical. It was like, the idea was we wanted the record to start and people will be like, whoa,
Yes.
And so we would listen to these songs over and over and over. And we were like, we need to start it with this because it's like, you're irresponsible. No, you know what I mean? It was just like, it was like a kickoff, and then you had the Too Short, would kind of represented Oakland a little, tell me just what you know what I mean? And so that kind of, we felt consciously that we wanted to kick off with some oomph. And I think that song was naturally the one to do it.
Damn. Yeah, absolutely. Are there other tracks on here then? Like, we have a few categories, like this album's very renowned, but like hidden gems, are there any on here where you would think people maybe need to talk a little bit more about, or like deserve a little bit more shine to you, or maybe just mean more to you?
I mean, I'm not sure. Like, to me, one of my favorite songs is Make Your Mind Up. I think that, and I think that, I don't know I think people who like the record, and that's one of their songs. Yeah. So I don't know if it's underappreciated, but I always love that song because the sample is amazing. And then like, it's one of my favorite samples of all time. And then again, they're just doing their thing. They're just being them, hieroglyphic is like the styles on that song, are amazing. Yeah. I think that song really represents souls well. That's definitely one of my favorites on the record, if not my favorite song. Let's see if I could think of something else that's kind of underappreciated. Let's see.
What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Go ahead.
Then That's When You're Lost, because I know a lot of people talk about it, but I do think that it's not talked about enough. Even though people do talk about it, That's When You're Lost. If you're making an argument for Del for being one of the best producer rappers ever, Casual's in there as well. They're all got, their shouts, but Del is dropping That's When You Lost, and yet coming out and still doing stuff on all these other albums. I don't know, man. That for me, I would say it's Virgin on a near moment.
Del also made Make Your Mind Up. So
and
there you go.
Yeah. Do you see what I mean? Like, 5 mic moments.
He makes really good beats. And I think the thing about That's When You Lost is it's very vintage MPC, not MPC, SP 1200. It's like it has, it's like, how the SP has a sound,
right?
And you hear it on That's When You Lost, and that's why it's so hard, because those drums of SP drums, like, and so like the first couple of records, that was, that's definitely Del's, music making device of choice, and so you hear it on that song particularly. The drums are just so hard. Yeah, and again, they come off. And one of the reasons why it was the first single is, again, we felt like we need to establish them as hip hop lyricist kids, and That's When You Lost was a natural kind of song to do it. I will say this though, we talked earlier about the original Batting Practice, and that was going to be the original first single that was going to be the first single on the record for 93 Till Infinity instead of That's When You Lost.
Right.
But again, the sample didn't clear. And then, of course, we ended up doing a different version on the record, but with the same hook. It's like that, Anna, you got a hieroglyphics baseball bat, Anna. That was one of the reasons why it was going to be the first single, was because of that hook. And like, I think that version is so great, man. It always bums me out that we weren't able to use it.
Bro, I was talking to Evidence this year, and we were doing the same thing. We were just sitting there going, God, it's so rubbish, that track. That the original wasn't on the album. Yeah. I know, like, we can go out, people do go out and listen to that, because it might just be one of my favorite Hiero songs anyway. Just the original is just incredible, man.
It is. It's a great song.
Taxi as well.
Yeah.
The way, like, that must have been some hype. When you're dropping this stuff, you know, like these things that aren't on albums, like Taxi must have been huge for you guys. Like, people must have been like loving that when they first heard that.
Yeah, well, you know, it's known. I mean, the early Souls of Mischief demos were floating around, particularly in the skateboarder community and just the community, the hip, you know, underground community, and people were trading them or whatnot. And so that song kind of people knew about, at least not nationally, but at least in our area and in wherever that these tapes ended up getting. Apparently, they did get international, people sending them to each other or whatnot. But yeah, there was already such a buzz on the song because already. And so, you know, we knew, and that was one of the main reasons why Jive signed the Souls, was that song, you know.
Yeah.
There was another song called Step to My Girl, which didn't end up going on the record, which is another song that were the two main, I think, songs on the demo that attracted Jive to us, but or attracted us to Jive. But yeah. So I don't know. So you know, that was kind of, you know, we knew that was going to be one of the songs that was going to get out there. Yeah. You know, but then again, sample clearance, Bob James initially said no. And which is, you know, I see him all over on this track lib. Now he's like Mr. Sample and now he's all like, yeah, you know, and then he's actually using our song as one of the songs he talks about.
No way.
Which, if you look at, there's a Bob James interview, I think Ninth Wonder did it. And he's talking about, they're going over songs from his catalog. And one of the ones that he does is 93 and it is Cab Fair. And what was interesting about it was he obviously has no recollection that he said no to us about clearing it, A, and B, he claims that it was a replay, which it wasn't. And so I don't know if, you know, if Bob was getting a script, and, you know, hey, respect to Bob James. He's a genius and he's amazing, but he has it all wrong as far as the history of that song in regards to him, you know, but yeah, but that's it is what it is. But yeah, that song, that sample didn't get cleared. And so that's why it didn't come out.
Well, people, go out there, go YouTube, whatever, listen to it, and then tell everyone you know, because that just need more hype. Like, even don't want these things to get lost, man. These are the little hidden gems. I don't want to stay hidden, you know. And saying that, going on to the next album, Dell, No Need for Alarm. It's weird. If you're in the right circles, that album is landmark. If you're detached and maybe just something you missed in the 90s, 93, right? A lot of stuff come out 93, 94. You may have missed it. It's one of them albums that I listen back to now and I'm just like, it's probably perfect. Like, I don't think there's one skip on that whole album. When you knew that he'd made this real, Ice Cube didn't want it, what was it like? Because I've heard Dante Ross talk about it, and he even said like Muggs was gonna work on it. Do you remember any of that? Do you remember any of that beforehand?
I never heard any of that. That wasn't a conversation that I was involved in. In fact, I've never heard that until just now. And so, no, I mean, see, what happened was, you know, if you notice, you know, Cube and DJ Pooh, but it was Cube's direction, produced the first record, right? And then if you check out the singles on the first record, right, they all had these B-sides that were a little bit more different or a little bit more toward what he ended up doing later, right? Yes. And so you had Burnt on one, you had Eye Examination on another, you had I forgot, Undisputed Champs was one. Undisputed Champs, maybe that came for the next record. But regardless, the B-sides, I think if you look at Burnt and you look at Eye Examination, those are certainly from singles from the first record. Yeah. And the idea for those is that Del had his freedom to do what he wanted to do without Cube's direction or Pooh's direction. Yeah. And so this was a chance for him to do what he was doing at home already with his crew. And so what ended up happening is that Del wanted to continue to do that. He didn't want to do any more of the D-funk stuff, yes. And so that's why he was basically, Cube was like, all right, do what you want to do, and they basically, allowed him to do what he wanted to do on his second album. And I think that what Del wanted to do was show that he wasn't just this Mr. Dabalina sleeping on my couch rapper. He was more similar. He was more like what the Souls were doing, because that's what he was doing, as you can see on the B-sides, And so, and I think his peers were disappointed based on what they heard him doing at home and based on what they did on the first record. And don't get me wrong, right? The first record to me is great, and I think Del likes it, and but I think that they wanted to do more progressive, forward-thinking, more lyrical stuff, and that's just what they wanted. And so when the second album came around, then it was basically all of us, the crew, basically the Four Souls, me, Casual, Pep Love, and J Biz were there, and shout out to Matt Kelly, who was the engineer for all the records at High Street Studios. Big shout out to him, because he had a lot to do with the sound. And so, basically that was the way that we were basically, everyone in the crew was in sync of what we were doing. And I said this, and I've said this before in different interviews or whatever, is that I don't know how familiar you are or your listeners are to the label CTI Records, which Bob James was on, and Idris Muhammad and George Benson, and it was like a very popular jazz kind of more fusion style label in the 70s. Right. And one thing about those records is you do a Bob James record, and then you'd have Idris Muhammad on drums, you'd have Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, and you'd have whoever, George Benson on guitar, right? And then it would be a Bob James record, right? And then you do an Idris Muhammad's record, and it had Bob James on keyboard. Yeah. It had George Benson on guitar. Yeah. Idris, and then you do a George Benson record, and it had Bob James, you know what I mean? And so that's what I likened it to, was basically interchangeable group of musicians that were all recording this at the same time, but there was just a different artist who was the figurehead of the record. And so the Souls of Mischief 93 Till Infinity record had all the same people producing it and adding, participating in it as casuals, as Dells. Yeah. And so that's why this is the whole reason why I wanted, when you said the three run, I felt like this made sense, because they were basically one record being made at the same time. You know what I mean? But in particular, when it's Soul songs, there was a Soul's direction, but it still was all the same players. When it was Casual's album, it was Casual's direction, but it was still all the same players. When it was Del's record, it was all the same players, just his direction.
Yeah, man, that's brilliant that you guys, the egos, did not play a bigger part. Like, everyone has them, I'm sure. Hip hop, you live by them, right? But the fact that you're not disagreeing, or you're learning and you're taking things, if someone is the lead on this, bang, we'll follow that lead, and then the next one switch. Just amazing to hear, man. I think that's kind of been the longevity, just seeing a crew that is kind of a bit more progressive, as you said, but also now still the music still is going on, and you feel like, yeah, these guys, they all seem to be really good mates. I mean, I don't know if that works, but to hear it like that, you think, yeah, this crew is tight. So absolutely, man, I love that. And what is it then that they bring that differently in the Hiero crew? Del, Pep Love, all the Souls, Casual, for you, could you say like how they stand out from one another? I know it's a very long-winded question, but do you have that in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all have different kind of things that make them individuals. I think Casual has a little bit more of a harder edge than the others. I think Dell's a little bit more cerebral, a little bit more progressive, forward thinking, a little bit more. You know what I mean? I think that I honestly, ironically, Dell's involved in the biggest hit, which is Clint Eastwood, right? But I think Dell has the least. He's thinking the least about having hits, I think Dell's totally like, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't care how different it is. I think the other guys are a little bit more conscious of commercial success. But I think that, let's see, Tajay is like, he went to Stanford. He's a super intelligent wordsmith. He knows a lot about words. All the crew. I think one of the main things thing that's consistent between them all is they all are very, very good with the English language. Yes. They all know the use of words and what words mean that aren't typical words. And I think that shows. And they're cerebral as far as how they analyze other rappers. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I got with them, I remember they were super into Chill Rob G, right? And I was, I liked Chill Rob G at first, but I wasn't like no huge fan of his. But then I peeped how much they liked him, and I realized it was because of the styles, the rhyme styles. Yeah. It wasn't just the words. Me as a fan of hip hop, I was more into specifically what people were saying. And so if somebody said something that didn't make any sense to me, that would be a turnoff, to where they would be like, but peep how he's saying it, peep the styles, peep how he connects these words from this word. Yeah. They all were super analytical about the people they were listening to, like KRS-One and, like I said, Chill Rob G and Master Ace and Dios, whoever they were listening to, and they were all listening to everybody, right? They were, they lived and breathed hip hop, or they probably, they still do. I'm not saying like they're not here anymore. But at that time, it was like there was. And it was a smaller community at the time of what was being released. And so you were able to own everything and hear everything, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane. I know Casual's a big Daddy Kane fan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so these guys were studying all these dudes, and how they were doing things. And then they were taking that and they were giving their own flip on it. Yeah. And so
it is.
I got to say that about them all, is that they're all they're all wordsmiths.
Yeah. And you say there about putting their own style on it. Just going back to 93 Till Infinity, I was listening to it. I can't remember, probably a track we've already talked to on, but I remember there was something about, I can't go shoot that man because I've got school on Monday. And that just hit me the other day, where I was like, damn, like, who else is talking like that? And who else is bringing that unique, that's you, that's essentially, that's essentially you. And also, like, that's the weird thing about Dell, is like, you're talking there about studying. He's under Cube. I hear, and I'm not sure, I know we had him on the show, about like him being uncredited for jacking for beats and Alive on Arrival, and stuff like that his ego, as you said, I can get an insight into this guy's head, which is like, I'm not here to make the hits, I'm here to do what I love doing. And to see him do this album, how important was No Need for Alarm for him? And like, what for you, where does it stand in his legacy for you?
Well, I think it was very important. And for a couple, like, here's the thing, right? I would not put down his first album at all. I think it's an amazing record, right? It's an amazing record. And I don't have any problem with the people that like that record more than where he ended up going with the next record or whatever followed, right? Because I think that it's fair. The storytelling, the skits, there's, you could tell that record is a polished record with Cube and Pooh, who had made a lot of records leading up to then. They knew how to make records, and so there's a certain polish to that record that I think is great. The thing about No Need for Alarm is that I believe that if he wouldn't have established himself as this lyrical progressive MC, and it's who he truly was, right? I don't think his career would have went the way that it went, because I think that as great as as great as I wish my brother George was here it's still only, he was kind of known as Mr. Davalina guy. You know what I mean? And all the singles, none of them, they were all kind of catchy. Sleeping on My Couch and Dr. Bombay with the singers, D-Funk, you know what I mean? And I think that if he would have continued to be known for that and continue to do records, I think he would have phased out and no one would have cared. I think that his direction, and along with the other guys in Hiero, was where hip hop was going, and he saw it, and that's where he wanted to go. And if he wouldn't have put out No Need for Alarm, I don't think he would have had the longevity that he had. Because I don't even think No Need for Alarm sold as good as the first record. But it was, he needed to do it to be able to establish who he truly was. And then I think the people that jumped on that carried him to be able to have the long career like the rest of us, because I think that people appreciate when you're being different. They appreciate when you're being progressive and you're not just doing radio hits or things that are deemed as attempting to be on the radio. And I think that that's to me why that record was so important for his career, because it established himself like, oh, this dude can rap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the people that didn't notice on Eye Examination that he could rap, or on Burt, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who, you know, and a lot of people did know, but, you know, but not everybody, most people didn't. And so I think that this, along with the other Hiero members coming out, I think it was part of a movement in the same direction with those three. And I think it was way more impactful than if he would have came out with another record that was produced in the way that the first one was, all more, you know, hooky kind of, you know, quirky songs, which, you know, I think that people would have just been it would have been a lot easier to just write him off.
Absolutely, man.
I think the Dan the Automators of the world wouldn't have been wanting to work with Dell if he didn't do Catch a Bad One.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and it's amazing looking back on it because you can see that line now. But to do it at the time, it takes balls, man, to be like, no, I'm just going to do this. So I massive respect all of you to do that, like kind of shift into that lane. For you listening back to the album or thinking of the album now, what are the things then, what are the tracks then that come to mind that you love, like you will rewind all the time? Is there anything there on the album that you still go back to?
Worldwide is one that I really like. The one with the Casual, I think, did the beat, and a Unicron with the Unicron on it.
When did you hear first Unicron? When did you hear that? Did he tell you he was doing it?
He did some songs, demoed some songs where he did the Unicron character before. Right. And in fact, one of my favorite songs, and I think it might be the last time he did a song with Unicron, was a demo he did. And I might be on Hiero Oldies. It's called Honestly. Right. You can probably find it online. Okay. And that's has a Unicron on it too. But he used to do his that character here and there before that. Yeah. And so I had heard it before, and then he did it on Worldwide. Let me think, what else do I really like from that record? I like, you know, I think Thank You, I really like.
My God, that's one of my favorite tracks of all time.
It's very A+. That yeah. That's the Crusaders. Right. It's a great A+ was really good at finding those Fender Road melodies in his beats at that time. I like that one. I think Dante SDs did Boo Boo Heads, which that was done at the end of the process because we felt like he needed some more kind of hooks on the record, right. And so that was one of the ones that he ended up doing. Like those might have been the last two songs. One of my favorite songs on the record didn't make it, was a song called Pistol Whippers. I think it might be floating around. Right. It's called Pistol Whippers. And he goes, I'm gonna pull a pistol and I bet nobody will blow the whistle. It's like, It's out there if you find it. But that was always one of the songs that I was really disappointed that didn't make it. And again, I believe it was because of sample clearance, because he was talking about guns.
Right.
Whoever, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then honestly, then there's the standards that I think are great. Catch a Bad One's an amazing, amazing song, man. That's that cello and
is that what it is? Cello, right?
Yeah, dude. It's just such a great beat by Casual. Shout out to Casual.
Yeah, man.
I will say this. I never really loved my beats on that record. Like once it came together, I always felt like I wasn't like totally loving the songs that I did for some reason. Like I don't know why now.
Man. Don't Forget is one of my favorite, and I've said that for quite a few tracks today, but Don't Forget was one of the first ones I fell in love with on this album. I love that. And No Need for Alarm, like come on, man. Is No More Worries one of yours as well? I think. Come on, man.
No More Worries and No Need for Alarm.
Jesus.
Okay.
Come on, man. Like the
I don't
bass,
know. Maybe I'm not sure why. Maybe sometimes you get too close to songs, or maybe you want it to be a little different. But I hear you. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe it's just personal. You know what I mean? And I'm not mad at them. Like, I don't feel like they embarrass me or anything, but for some reason, those aren't the main songs that I'm attracted to when I listen to the record.
I think your taste shift, right? So, they shift as you get older, but like in the car now, when I hear, No More Worries and Casual on there is unreal. They're all unreal. But the thing with Casual, I think there's a flourish on there where you start bringing some keys in on his verse that weren't in there earlier. And that automatically, I'm going 5 miles extra an hour. Like I'm just going to just press a little bit because it just gets you, it just, biologically, I'm affected by that. So if you don't, get enough, you need to know that this still, hits us. What it is about No More Worries that just bothers me, and this is totally 100% personal producer shit. Right.
But basically, I don't like how the drums are mixed. They're too tinty for me. You know what I mean? And maybe a little too loud. And that's just personal, right? And so every time I hear it that way. Like, damn, I should have turned down them drums a little bit. They're a little bit too, but some people don't mind that, you know what I mean? Or not at all. And so, again, it's just personal producer. For instance, Let 'Em Know. There's the third snare clashes with another snare, right? And most people wouldn't notice that. It's like, instead of like the snare hitting together, it kind of clashes with the loop. I had a drum loop and I had maybe it was 2 loops, or maybe I had a snare over the loop, but there's one part where it goes, and like, that's normal, right? Like, especially when RZA's is known for that, you know what I mean? But for me, it bothered me. Yeah. It bothered me that snare wasn't quite matching right in time. And so every time I would hear it, I'd hear that.
Yeah.
And no one else in the world cares, but it bugs me. 20, 30 years later, it bugs me.
So when you hear someone like Kanye out there, I don't know what he did with Donda essentially, but didn't he like do it where he's going to continuously tweak it? For someone like, if you had that back then, would you have been there? Just, I'm just going to tweak this. It's on streaming. Don't worry, no one will,
Well, what happened was I remember, it wasn't like it was after. I remember hearing it when I was, laying it down. And then for whatever reason, I was like, or somebody was like, it's not that, it sounds fine, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it probably does sound fine. Right. But that was in my head at that time. And so it never will leave because I always hear that, and that's just, I tortured myself. I should have fixed it, but even if it is just as good or maybe even better with it, it's just the fact that it was in my head. It always goes along every time I hear that song.
Man, the heartache of a producer, man. Oh, man, it's amazing. But we talk about No Need for Alarm, and then we talk about, which I think, as I said, the album probably deserves another go-round with a lot of people, but another album that definitely deserves another go-round, and I do feel I got into this one late. 1994 was so stacked. 93, 94 was so stacked. Something like Fear Itself from someone like Casual coming out, I feel it's horrible that this kind of album may be another one that people may not have heard as much. And for you, when you look back at Fear itself and you look at like a casual, like who's really raw, very raw, for you, how does it feel thinking about the album now? Like, do you remember a lot about it, like when that was coming out?
Yeah, because that was one where I did a majority of the beats. And so the main thing that I think did the album a disservice was it came out too late, right?
Right.
The first single, I don't know if you can look this up, but the first single, which was That's How It Is, right? That may have came out in early 93.
Right.
Because it came out with the other first singles.
Right.
And I want to say it definitely was early 93. It could even possibly be late 92, but I think it was early 93. And so, you know, like I said, these records were done at the same time. And so I felt like Casual's album was probably a year old before it came out. And I felt like that kind of hurt it. You know what I mean? I felt like it kind of was like, if it would have came out like at the same time as the other ones, it probably would have done a lot better. And because I think it's as strong as the other ones. Yeah. I think, you know, it doesn't have its 93 Till Infinity on it, of course. But I think that I like it as much as, and I just think that it, you know, by the time that it came out, to me, it was dated a little bit. You know, a year is a long time in hip hop. Yeah. You know, and so I feel like that album coming out in early 93 or mid 93, I think that people would have took to it a little bit differently. And so, you know, but that being said, right, man, I love that record, you know, and Casual is, you know, I used to say this in interviews back in these times when people would ask me to describe Casual. I said, he's hip hop hard, right? And what I mean by that is by that time, gangster hard was so prevalent that, you know, Casual was likening back to the Rakims, the Runs, the Big Daddy Kane, where they had a hard persona, but they weren't rapping about shooting people. EPMD, you know what I mean? They may mention guns here and there, you know, that don't slow them up. I carry a full pack, you know what I mean? Yeah. But they weren't glorifying being hard and gangster. That's just their presence was that way. And that's how hip hop was. And I feel like then after that, being hard means you was a street dude and you were pistol whipping people and selling drugs. Like, you know what I mean? And so I felt like at that time, so by 93, I felt like that was more prominent. And I felt like Casual was like back to when what hip hop hard meant, like aggressive, that made like manly, strong, you know? Yeah. And so, and so like, that's kind of, I felt like he that's what he represented, which is the type of hip hop I like, you know, and he was he's super lyrical, and he also had some dope stories, and he was did a lot of thought provoking things. Yeah. You know, I really like on that record, you know, I really like You Flunked.
Oh, what a beat.
Giving you all a big F, you know? Yeah. You, oh man, you know, and those are all Casual beats too. What's the Get Off It? I know you only want it. Get off it. Yeah. Yeah. Those are all demos. Oh, I like those two songs. Follow the Funk. Yeah, we're all on this demo. Right. And there was a couple others, but yeah, I like those. I like. I think I Didn't Mean To is a great story. Yes, you know, that's a really good song. Yeah, Mio Mayo. Probably one of my favorites that I did. Yeah, I'm hearing another one I did that I really like is Losing the End. Yes. Yes. That beat stands the test of time. Absolutely. Like, there's certain beats you hear that when you listen to them 20 years later, you're like, that's still the beat, you know? And that was one that I felt like, that was another demo song.
Losing the end is just another one. Changes the way you walk, man. Changes the way you walk. That's you, bro, as well. That's you as well on that, right?
Yeah, losing the end. I did like 7 or 8 songs on that record, so I did a lot. I did B1000. I did
B1000, yeah.
Got It Like That.
Got It Like That, yeah.
Which I really like that sample
Thoughts
too.
of the Thoughtful's another one.
Thoughtful to Thoughtful. Yeah, that was the B side of the first single. Yeah. I like Thought.
But again,
Thoughts of the Thoughtful.
It's another album that you can go with the beats, you can go with the samples, but when you hear Chained Minds and the hook to Chained Minds, like, okay, maybe a lot of people don't look at Hiero for hooks, but I think the hooks are heavy. Like the hook to Chained Minds is wicked and really informative, intricate, complex themes. And he's 17, 18. Like, Jesus Christ, man, like you're 17, 18 and you're trying to tackle stuff about why I need to be strapped in the hood and like, you know, and what we have to do. That's like, I know the Coup were out at this time and I've been feeling the Coup recently. I've been really diving back into a lot of their stuff. And I was like, I don't know if you remember there's a track called Funk that they brought out on To Kill a Landlord, Kill Your Landlord. And I'm like listening to the complexity of what these kids at that time I tried to tackle. At 17, I wasn't even thinking that way. So the artistry cannot be slept on Fear Itself, on any of these records, to be fair. So I just want to make sure that's hitting home for a lot of people. That's How It Is another one where, and I know there's a part 2 to that with A+ on there.
Right. Well, there's a remix, right? And the remix is incredible, right? The remix, which Casual did, is the Stretch and Bobbito used to run that a lot. They loved that version. That was like their favorite version, Bobbito's. And then the part 2 was on the B side, which is to this day one of my favorite Heiro songs. Him and A+.
Yes.
The rap, the lyrics on that song, man. Styles, man. A+ is here to bust a rapper. That's my given purpose. I'm gonna slap you. You're living worse. Boy, you're not. Oh man. Yeah. I hate that song, man.
That's when you realize the lineage to, like, how many people have tackled 93 Till Infinity? J. Cole, definitely. He's done it twice, I think. You got Mac Miller, you got Freddie Gibbs, you got all these people like Joey Badass. When you hear something like that, or Mio Mayo, the way Casual's flowing on that, there is times when you actually have to think, yeah, man, the real people who study have definitely studied, and these are the newest generation. So going back to your first point about, like, the lineage and the legacy, I think people have gone back to Fear Itself and listened back to some of this stuff because it's just incredible.
Well, I think what the real test, and here we are talking about it still, like, it's the test of time, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, really, there's a lot of records that come out at a certain time period and may be way more popular than what we did at the time. But you listen to them 10, 15, 20 years later and you're like, okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then you have the records and 93 Till, hands down, is one of those records for me, and I'm biased, right? But I'm very hard on the stuff we do too. But that record stands up, man. You know what I mean? 93 Till Infinity, the song, it stands up. And a lot of it is because our mindset was to add to the culture. Yeah. Don't do something. Don't just regurgitate what other people were doing. Do your own shit. Be original. When, and it mattered then. Yeah. And I think if you do that, hopefully someone will catch on to it. But I think if you do it and people do catch on, that's going to have staying power. Yeah. And I think you listen to those records and you're like, wow, they don't sound dated. You know what I mean? And I think that's the real test. And I think that the fact that people are still rapping over 93 Till Infinity and still talking about it. And, I think Rick Ross might have did a version that did use a sample, or whatever, there's a bunch of people that have used the sample, but they did it in a way that they obviously used the sample because of 93 Till Infinity, not because, it's just a common sample. And I think that's why that is that record has stood the test of time, which is the real point of your legacy, right? Is that,
absolutely. Yeah.
I always make this compare, this point, right? And it's like, There's no diss on this dude, and rest in peace to him. But when people, do you remember when the source mics mattered? When the source would review your record, and it was like the Bible,
Yeah.
And I remember we were upset because in the source they gave 93 Till Infinity a 3.5.
I saw that.
But they gave Apache a 4, right? Rest in peace, Apache. You know what I mean? But I don't think anyone today would say that Apache's record is as good as 93 Till Infinity. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know what I mean? Like, I like Gang to Bitch. I like the record. I'm not just dissing it totally, but I think that we transcended, the era.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Here we are. And I think that sometimes you're ahead of people.
Yes.
People don't recognize, or there's biases. But ultimately, in the end, the songs that once that time period is over, once you get 10, 15, 20 years later, what are people bringing back? And they're bringing back that they reminisce over you and stuff of that nature.
Absolutely. And the fact is, I think that especially in an era of such convenience as we have now, people love having convenient things just put at their doorstep. So you can hear 93 Till Infinity, but it doesn't necessarily you're going to go listen to the whole album. But I think when we started this show, it was like the album is to us still an incredibly, important thing, like to be able to do front to back. And I feel like Heiro definitely had that, especially in these three, thinking about sequencing, thinking about, man, I remember that you guys even did a comic book this is how ahead of things you were, like with Casual. Do you remember that, the 94? Like,
we did comic book for the release.
Fear Itself.
And it was basically telling the story of I Didn't Mean To in the comic book.
That was it. That was
I remember.
And like,
I have some of those still.
Oh, damn, really? That's amazing, bro. Like, it's when you start thinking about like albums, and then you start thinking, all these people who grew up in the 60s and 70s, they have 101 rock documentaries, 101 rock channels, classic rock. Like, I don't remember there being a classic hip hop station. There just doesn't seem to have that same reverence yet. But I do feel like there's albums like No Need for a Lot. If you love 93 Till Infinity, you're going to love Fear Itself. That's how I feel. And I'm glad that you can be here with us now. And hopefully we can celebrate this album, but also like if there are people who haven't heard it, bang, check it out. I have to then talk to you about another real moment for Heiro. You guys had these landmark moments, and although we didn't feel the effects straight away of it, maybe over here, because, distance, different country, all that, but that bullshit, when Casual, amazing song, Saphir's on there as well. You know where I'm going to go with this, but like that Hobo Junction battle, Casual and Saphir, and you're on Sway and King Tech. What do you remember of this battle, and what are your most memorable moments of that?
I just remember it was just like super frantic and a lot of tension, right? It wasn't like the normal battles now that where like people kind of get along and they just kind of battling like the verses. You know what I mean? Everyone likes each other. This was we didn't like each other, and it's very evident if you listen to the the radio recording of it. I have to say that my feelings about the battle are not positive, and it's for this reason alone. Is I feel like, in this, I feel like I look at those dudes freestyle like nobody's business, right? And I've heard them freestyle for years and years and years, particularly in that era, right? And I was honestly disappointed in our performance, right? And, Saphir had written, he was saying specific things. And so the debate of whether that mattered, the writtens versus the freestyle, or whether that should matter, that's not for me to say. But I will say that we chose to come off the top, and I don't feel like, for instance, and I was just talking to Tajay about this the other day. I was like, Tajay, that's literally the worst freestyle I ever heard you say, period. Before or since. Because he was so hyped and so like, that he just couldn't, he just like almost overheated himself. You know what I mean? And and so like, you know, I'm not trying to like make excuses, but that's what I took from it. I was like, damn, man, like, and it's still debatable who won, but regardless, is I felt disappointed in our performance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I felt like, man, writtens or no writtens, it should be no question of who's the better MCs. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't feel that the fact that there was even a question was disappointing to me, because I knew how much better they are as MCs than Saphir and the rest of his crew. I mean, the rest of his crew didn't even do anything. So, you know, but it's really just Saphir. But I knew deep down how much better they are than him. And I felt like it shouldn't even have been a contest, but it was a contest, because I feel like we were lackluster compared to our abilities. And that's how I feel about it. And whenever anyone talks about the battle, that's the feeling I get in my stomach about it. So unfortunately, it isn't a positive, like, you know, I know you know, it's part of the culture now. And it was like, you know, back when no one was really battling, but I certainly, you know, I don't have a good taste in my mouth whenever that topic comes up. Let's put it like that.
Damn, man. Well, I'm sorry for bringing it up, first of all.
No, it's fine, because it means something to everyone. And so that's fine. And it meant something to whoever it means something to you. This is totally a personal feeling. And I don't mind talking about it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But that's the honest truth of what, when someone says, what is your memories, or what are your take, or what do you think back? That's all it is to me. Damn. It's like, man, we should have.
It's mad, because even this year there's been a short film on it. So it's this, you know, I'm glad there's big up whoever did that, because I feel like these moments need to, because when you watch it back, it is not an easy call for me anyway. And I even think on the show, they were like, you know, talking about like, we counted the votes, it was 50-50 or whatever. But I understand though. You're with these guys 24/7. You've seen them freestyle every day. So it's a different prism, man, to come into it.
Go and listen to some of the freestyles on Stretch and Bobito.
Yes.
That they were doing, right? And then compare it to what happened that night. Like, you know, there's a lot of evidence of how great these guys are freestylers. Yeah. And that ain't one of them. You know, Casual, don't get me wrong. Like, Casual said something, he was coming tight on a lot of, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he, you know, messed all over himself. But, you know, I just think that based on the ability, and, you know, I will say this, the night before that battle, I said, hey, Casual, man, you might want to, write some shit, because Saphir's shit's going to be all written and it's going to be specific. And you might, and Cal was like, nah, I'm going to keep it off the top. You know, I'm not writing nothing, because you know what? A lot of people don't know this, and there's actually a video of it online, but Saphir and Casual battled the weekend before that. Yes. Right. At a Casual show in San Francisco. And apparently Saphir was on the Wake Up show talking mess that same night, right? And was kicking some of the raps that he ended up kicking. And so anyway, he comes, they're at the door, security is not letting them in. I come to the door and I said, let them in, okay? They're going to battle, right? And so they had the battle on stage, and Saphir kicked them same raps. And so I knew that, and I don't remember much, because I remember I was doing the sound at the time. Yeah. And I don't remember much about the specifics of of what Casual said that night or whatever. And again, there's a video somewhere of it. But I knew that Saphir had all this stuff. Saphir had all the stuff that was specific to Casual that he said on stage. So I knew that he was going to do that. Yes. When it came time to go up to the Wake Up show, I was like, oh yeah, he's going to have written. You should write something about him. But Kaz was like, nah, I'm gonna keep it off the top.
Damn. But even when you hear the intro to Fear itself, and that's how pure he was at it. You know, it's about freestyling. It's about off the dome. That purity, maybe as you said, it might have hamstrung you, but I think there's some poetry to that where you're like, damn, this guy just so much honorable just to keep it like that. And I know
that intro is off the top. That Fear Itself intro, it's a freestyle. That's definitely off the top.
And I don't even doubt that, man. I don't even doubt it. But tell me this then, right? If you did do a versus, who goes against Heiro? Who would you want?
You know, somebody asked me this before, and to me, the one that makes sense, that kind of a similar trajectory, would be Boot Camp. I think that, you know, some people say Wu, but come on, man, you know, Wu's one of the bigger groups in hip hop, period. You know, so I never would, we would get washed by anyone in Wu. So
20 for
definitely
20,
not Wu.
20 for 20. I don't know. It depends on the crowd reaction, right? And all that. Yeah.
Well, the thing is Wu's hits are all big. Other than 93, there's not really any hits that are bigger than the rest of Wu's catalog. I feel you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so like, yeah, nah. But the reason why I say Boot Camp, because there's a certain kind of parallel to them and us. You know what I mean? Like they're East Coast, we're West Coast. It was a crew. It was a crew of different solo artists. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so I'd say that that's probably and you know, they had some kind of, you know, like bigger records, but then they have their underground stuff too. Yeah. And so I think Boot Camp would probably make the most sense, that would be the most even kind of, you know, where I think we're similar type of groups, where we both had our independent success. We had our, like, I mean, I don't know if they were ever on a major label. I think, you know, I don't know if you would call Nervous major, but but you know, I guess Jive was independent too, if you want to look at it like that.
For sure. Yeah.
But you know, the records that are like, you know, staples in hip hop, like, you know, Who Got the Props and stuff like that, you know.
That I'm here for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the you know, and I have utmost respect for them. You know what I'm saying? And but that's the one that seems to make the most sense, you know.
Yeah. I can see it. Let's make it happen, people. Come on, I want to see that. But it's a celebration as well, though, right? That's the beauty of it. Like, I remember them battles being watching that video again of the Hobo Junction stuff. That battle, the temperature was high. You could tell just watching the video. So it's quite nice when they're celebrating this stuff. You were talking there about Jive, though, and one thing I did want to ask. It's interesting where Heiro went after this run. And looking at the legacy of these 3 albums and the impact they had. But like, obviously one of the bigger things was the fact that independence, you got massive independence and went down that route. I wanted to ask you, how did you guys react and feel when people like Casual were, you know, coming off the majors? Was there an element of pressure or fear, especially after what you've just done? Was there any of that around?
No, because we felt we had a negative taste in our mouth about our major label experience, right? And so the initial plan was that we were going to put out a crew record that we on our own label, and then that would springboard to show that we could do. You know, the main problem we had with our labels was we felt like they knew what was best for what type of music, what should be marketed and what should be promoted. And so we felt like we do this record, this independent record, then we'll have enough clout so we can sign major deals, but be able to lead our own direction because we've proven that we can do it ourselves. And so, but what ended up happening is that we had the experience on the first indie record was so good as far as the amount of money we were making, you know, just, we felt like, oh man, we don't need no major label. You know what I mean? And so that plan, as soon as Third Eye Vision came out and it started having success, it came out in 98. You know, the idea was, okay, now let's put our individual shit. I don't even think anyone thought about getting signed anymore, because we realized not only are we making more money, we own our masters, we own our publishing, we have our own company. You know what I mean? And so we realized that was the way. You know, there was no other way, because we weren't doing commercial records. You know what I mean? Maybe if you're doing commercial records and you need radio, then maybe you need a label. But we were doing just hip hop, you know, and at that point, you know, you could get it out to people with the advent of the internet. You know what I mean? We were at the beginning of the internet. We were one of the first musical groups with a website. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so we basically, it was it's kind of a perfect storm with where the industry was, where the World Wide Web starting, and us doing it and having this direct link to our fans who were like, damn, I like them. What happened? Where'd they go? Yeah. Oh, they're over here now. And people had a place to find us, and we could tell them, hey, we're doing this record. This is about to come out. Yeah. And so, you know, it ended up being a great move for us, you know. And so, yeah, we weren't nervous because we were like, fuck that. Like, we had a bad taste. And so we had no desire to want to put out records on a label unless we had more control of the marketing and direction. And you know, and because we knew what we wanted to do musically, we knew what our fans wanted to hear from us.
Yeah, because this verges onto one of our Patreon listeners. One of our patrons was basically hitting us up because we asked them if there was anything they wanted to ask yourself, and it just verges onto what you said. Daniel Only, big up. He said the group comes together from deals that go left with mainstream labels. When forming Hiero, how conscious was everyone that this label would be naturally different, and they all, as a group, need to lean into that, like maximizing, you know, the unique format and personalities that you have?
Well, I think the idea initially, Dell was the only one who wasn't dropped when we first started this, right? And so the idea was we were basically going to do this indie record, and we were going to use all Dell's pub and Dell doing it in all of his interviews to just talk about his indie record.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were like, we're going to springboard Dell's marketing.
Yeah.
And we're going to just, you know, hijack that. And so when Dell's in interviews, he's going to be like, yeah, cool, but buy Third High Vision on my label. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so, yeah, like we knew, you know, since Heiro, the crew has always been a thing, but we never did just Heiro crew songs, really. I mean, there was a lot of them that had a bunch of members, but we were like, let's do a whole album. And so, you know, what I did was I compiled all the demos that everyone was making, or just the music that was floating around from everybody, and gave everyone in the group a copy of it, and was like, look, this could be a Heiro album already. There was like 8 or 9 songs.
Wow.
That was, you know, some of them were like After Dark was one of them, because we demoed that. Seal of Light was another one.
Right.
I forgot. There's a bunch of others, but so I get in. Everyone was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I remember taking it to Matt Kelly, the engineer who had engineered our first 3, those other 3 records that we're talking about, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm on board." I said, "Maybe you can hook up," and he helped hook up studio time for us at various studio. Just one. We started in one, and then we ended up back at Hyde, but to where we were basically. It was getting deferred where we could pay later, you know,
right,
because we were just starting again, you know.
Yeah.
And then we were all started focusing on the internet and going on Hiero Hoopla, which was like the early, you know, hip hop chat board, you know, where will.i.am was on there a lot.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, and basically interacting directly with fans and saying, hey, we're doing this now. And then selling our Heiro oldies and Heiro B-sides mixtape, you know what I mean? And we were selling these online and selling our shirts, and that was funding our independent thing. And everybody was kind of like-minded of how we were going to make this work. Yeah. And since we were making it initially collective as a crew, we were able to basically have, you know, we had those 3 groups that we're talking about, plus Pep Love and J-Biz. And at the time, and then we had Heiro, the group, you know, not just Heiro the crew, but Heiro the group. And then the plan was like, all right. And then after that, everyone's going to put out their records next. Let's do Dell first. And then we're going to do, you know, like that was all planned out, and everyone knew that their time was next, you know? Yeah. And that's kind of how it happened.
That foundation to then see stuff like Heiro Day now, which is just huge over there, and not just over there, worldwide. And also just to see, like, you know, the fact that you guys still have grown, and that is such a foundation you laid for yourselves that you can just kind of be an artist now. And it's just beautiful, man. I was going to end it with one, just, you know, this must be weird. Like, it's weird for me to hear people all over the world listening to our show. It must be ridiculously weird for someone like yourselves when you hear, like, another one of our patrons, Anton Johnson, just want to big yourselves up, because he said, hearing your music in skateboard flicks when he was 17, 18 in Sweden, a white kid in Sweden, born in 1993. He was born when these things came out. He just wanted to say, you know, thank you and much love to your crew. And I was like, I'm glad, I'm honoured to be able to relay that message to you, because that's mad. This lad was born in 93. I was like 14, you know, and fully like, you know, into it. Right. So yeah, it's just beautiful, man.
That's great, man. I'm always touched by people who found it later. You know what I mean? Like they were born when it came out. That's always super, super humbling, you know. And shout out to those skateboard videos, because more people have found out about Hiero via the skateboard videos, in particular the Plan B videos. Then, you know, like that. I always tell the story is that when we were on a 93 Till Infinity promo tour, we were doing record in stores. And then we were like in Philadelphia, and some kid comes up, he goes, "Yeah, this record's great, but where do I get this song, Souls of Mischief?" And I'm like, "Oh, what song? Like, how do you know about that song?" Wow. It was in the Plan B video. And I'm like, "Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's not on the record. We haven't released it or whatever. It didn't make the record or whatever." Damn. Oh, okay. We go to fucking Baltimore in store. Yay, this is great. But where do I get the song Souls of Mischief? And then it dawned on me just the impact that these skateboarders, because I was, you know, I know skaters and whatever, but I wasn't in the scene and I wasn't watching any of these videos, and I kind of just gave the music, you know, well, they were using our music, and then I gave some unreleased songs to shout out to Jake Rosenberg, who was the one who approached me about it, and he also did videos for us as well. You Never Knew, he did the You Never Knew video for us. But yeah, and so, you know, yeah, I mean, so many people found out about Hiero via the Plan B skateboard videos or Tony Hawk video game or whatever. Yeah, and so the connection with Hiero and skateboarding is great, man. You know, like I love all those individuals. Became friends with a lot of those skaters, and just the kids in that community are just super. I mean, some of the coolest individuals and nicest individuals that I've met, you know, and so big up to the skateboard community and worldwide, like you say, like you're the man in Sweden. What up, man?
Brilliant, man. Domino, this has just been, I could talk for even longer, but I know we've took so much of it. This has just been amazing. Thank you for just breaking these amazing pieces of art with us down, man. People, go check out those out. Go check out Hiero. Go check out all of it, man. And it's all worth your time. Domino, before you go, is there anything that you guys want to plug? Is there anything emerging, or are you guys just chilling?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing some things. Dell did a project with Kool Keith, but it's Keith's doing the production more than he's rapping. He's rhyming on it, but it's more like Dell over. It's Dell over Kool Keith production, and there's some guests and stuff. But it's interesting. It's really dope record. It's different, you know. And so I'd say keep an eye out for that. It's on it'll be out soon. And let's see what else we got going on. For those of y'all are in crypto, Hiero Coin, check that out. I mean, it's a funding thing. I'm not like hella versed in that, so you'd have to go and check it out. I can't really explain much here in this forum, but go check it out if you're curious to learn more about that on Hiero Coin at Instagram. And then yeah, man, you know, hopefully we'll come together and give you guys one last Hiero record at some point, but we're still trying to work all the ins and outs of that.
Yeah. We can't ask for any more, man. We can't ask for any more, because you guys have given us so much, but we're always here and we're always ready for it, man. So before you go, I'll ask you what I ask everyone who comes on. Domino, man, what is the last great piece of music you heard? Could be old, could be new, just the last great piece of music.
What do you mean, like from last great piece of music I heard? Good question. Let's see. What was I listening to yesterday? It's always like I listen to music all the time.
Of course.
So, I was, well, I don't know if this counts, but earlier this morning I was listening to P Rock discuss when he made The World Is Yours. Nas, The World Is Yours. And which is obviously a great piece of music. And so I don't know if that counts. I wasn't listening to the song, but listening to P Rock tell the story behind it, and Large Professional bringing Nas over, and they were listening to discs and blah blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
I'm letting it go. Domino, man, a legend saying that about another legend. I'm absolutely here for it. That's fine. So yeah, the rules for you are different. Absolutely, that's amazing. You're still studying as well. See, this is what I mean. You sit there and you still learn, and yeah, brilliant, man.
And it's all about music. As you can see, I got like records behind me. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is I'm all about music, man. Music is my sanctuary.
That's it, man. I love that. What a way to end it as well. But thank you, Domino. Much love. And yeah, hopefully we catch you soon. Doors are always open if you want to jump on again. If any of the crew are doing anything, hit us up. But yeah, man, just keep doing you, and thank you for the music, man.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to everybody who's still supporting Hiero from 93 till.
All day, bro. All day. Peace.
Peace.